Yeah, there's so much that I want to explore. It's like, where do we start? Because when we were talking last, we were really diving into a lot of the social movements and the politics around, things that have been happening over the last, not just the last couple of years, but more. It's just that it's really intensified lately with the push for the greater, government power, and the institutions are starting to get more powerful now because of COVID. And we've got these vaccine passports that are coming out, and it's almost like a Nazi march into this authoritarian dictatorship state globally. And I feel really threatened by it. And it's so weird to me that, look, I get that I am an individual and this is my opinion, but surely I can't be wrong. Surely I'm looking at this pretty logically. And how is it that a lot of my friends, who I respect greatly and I love them, but they just don't agree with me? They're like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's going to be fine. Like, no, don't take the vaccine, like whatever. I mean, I'm not against the vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaccine person by any means. I got loads of scars on my arms and stuff, but there's something really fucking weird going on and wrong, and it's been happening for a while now. And I feel like a lot of people just don't have the same view and opinion on that, and they think that everything's fine and that you should trust the government. When clearly,
Yeah.
in my opinion, I think that that's a non-negotiable right there. Like, I just can't trust them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, like, just the human race, right? We are always so distracted, right? And it's a part of consumerism. So it's like you consume content, or you're consuming something. It's a service or something. So we're always so distracted, so that we don't spend even 1 second of our lives bored. And this has a massive impact on people, because we never stop to think about what's really going on. So we just take in whatever that is told to us. So if it's on YouTube, or if it's in the media, or if it's on our screen, then it's just a way of, like, it's like global domination done via a screen, So nobody's going to say, okay, I'm going to shut this laptop down and sit back and think for myself for once, because everything is already handed to me. So why do I have to think?
I think I think it's become a lot easier to distribute a narrative that benefits those in power because of the advent of a lot of technology. Like, social media is just an incredibly good example of how tapped in and wired in we all are to this
Yeah.
potential manipulation of the way of our thinking. I don't really need to explain it, and I'm probably going to really butcher the explanation if I try. But if you watch documentaries like the one on Netflix that came out a few years ago, it was about the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and they're basically an agency, or used to be an agency that don't exist anymore. They used to be an agency that, even running candidates for the presidency and their teams would hire this agency to work on their PR campaigns. And this is not
Yeah.
really a PR campaign, because PR campaigns, you're looking at something so much bigger than that. It's how can you manipulate people to vote for you. And
Yeah.
it was just shocking. Did you see it?
Yes, I did. I did. And I really don't think that, like, I don't like when they started advertising on social media, and they started advertising things on the internet, I don't think anyone had any clue as to how far this is gonna go. Because when we were kids, like, we didn't have the internet in Sri Lanka. So how would people sell you something? It's on banners, posters, stickers, newspapers, things like this. And I remember one time I was in the back seat of the vehicle, and my father was driving us to this part in Sri Lanka, and I was looking around in the city, and I thought, like, everywhere I look, it's some form of advertising, it's some form of marketing. Like, why can't somebody have a banner just says, "Hi, have a nice day," you know? And even everything, like everything you look at, it's just sold to you. And it just became more and more competitive, and they started like speeding down this path. So I think that when they started advertising online, I don't think they had the intention of becoming this cruel to people,
Yeah.
started like listening into their private conversations and whatnot. I don't think that was the end goal, but it just becomes so much more competitive. And
Mhm.
somebody, if there's just one evil genius sitting behind a laptop working for one of these massive companies, they know they're going to get a big bonus if they come up with like a new idea, a new algorithm. And so they just
Yeah.
do it without really thinking about the aftermath. They don't think about how much it's going to affect someone. So this is the crazy thing about like progressive ideologies and things like this, because you can't hit the brakes on this, and
Mhm.
nobody really knows where we're going, but we're just going. So it's progress for the sake of progress. It
Yeah,
doesn't, it has no ethic, it has no morals.
you made a good point that this is something that happens on a very individual level most of the time, and everyone
Hmm.
seems to agree that when all of these social platforms first began, they had very different intentions. Their
Hmm.
objectives were much more human focused, centric. So it wasn't about the
Yeah.
advertising back then necessarily. I mean, you could argue that some platforms exist simply because of advertising, and that's just their business objective. But
Yes.
email, for example, Gmail, all of that stuff, Google, Facebook, I guess they started out as very different ideas. And then, you know, on an individual level, they change over time and things become warped and convoluted and the business plan changes. And before you know it, like you said, it's just ultra competitive. How do you stay competitive with TikTok? How do you stay competitive with Twitter and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then the government gets involved. We want to. I mean, look, we're adults here. Like, we're not babies. We know that these kinds of collaborations happen between big tech companies and the government. We want your data, and in return, we're going to give you tax breaks. In return, we're going to give you, legislation that'll make it a lot easier for you to operate. In return, we're going to do all this and that for you, as long as you maintain, give us access to the data, we'll be fine. So I think it's unfortunate, how the system kind of guides everything down this narrow funnel of just corruption. Your
Just,
company exists
yeah, but
long enough.
like, I don't think they see the end goal. It's just progress for the sake of progress. And it's I think it's highlighted in this book Sapiens so well, where the author, this Yuval Noah Harari, he talks about this, and
Mhm.
he says on how, like, prosthetics, for example, prosthetics is when you want to attach a limb, right? That's
Mm.
prosthetics, right?
Yes,
Okay, and then, okay, so
like the
prosthetics,
tongue.
and yeah, yeah. And then prosthetics, and then you take like facial surgery, right? So it was first, they first started coming up with all these types of medical procedures because of soldiers who went to war, right? So they wanted to help these soldiers, and they wanted to come up with ways that they could they wanted to come up with ways where these people would be able to go back to their normal full state, right? Whatever physical state. But it's like, so they come up with these limbs and these arms and these strong legs made of steel, and it's impossible to say, okay, now stop here. So we have fixed this problem. Now we have strong legs for the soldiers who lost their legs in war. Now you stop here. Like, there is no breaks. So sooner or later, you're going to have people with perfectly working legs cutting it off and sticking steel legs so that they never get tired of running or something like this. And now we have cosmetic surgery. So it went from like facial surgery to cosmetic surgery, where we are shaping a perfectly normal face, and we are trying to enhance what we already have. So it's no more to even fix an issue, it is to enhance what you already have. So there is no hitting the brakes on this. There is no hitting the brakes on
Mm,
technology. As long as there is a market, as long as there is a global market, there is no hitting the brakes on this type of technology.
mhm.
And there is nobody to stop and say, okay, hold on, this stuff is doing much more harm than good.
Mhm.
No one's going to do that
Yeah.
unless people like you and me who are on IG screaming about these types of
Well, we do,
progressive
don't we? I mean, we
ideologies.
do. Yeah, we
Yeah,
do. We
and
do.
the backlash is crazy, you know.
Well, I mean, how is it? Because you're very vocal about things. What do you mean by the backlash is crazy?
I mean, people are already like they message me saying very horrible things, you know. It's just that like I don't want to post about things like this on my IG because I don't want to discourage people from speaking up. But it's horrible. Like people would say things to me like, "Oh, you know, my younger sister is suicidal because of shit, like because of the shit that you say, and this is if she kills herself, it's going to be on you." Like things like this, and you know, like I read it and I scoff, but stuff like that still goes to the back of my head, you know, and I'm thinking like, oh, shit, like crap, like is this real? It can't be real, right?
Do you mind
And
me asking though? Like, because just for the benefit of anyone who's listening, wondering, well, what does she mean? Like, what kind of things are we referring to here when they message you like that? I mean, what kind of conversations?
but I mean, I would just be criticizing like the body positivity movement or something like this, right? Just a simple
Right.
example. Or I would make fun of people, not fun per se, but I disregard a lot of people who complain about anxiety. I don't think anxiety is a mental illness. I just think we all get anxiety given that the life that we live in this fast paced world. Of course, all of us are going to suffer at one point in our lives from anxiety. And I don't think it's something that it's a serious issue. I don't think it's a severe problem. So I would
Mm,
say things like this. And it would be horrible. Like people would just think that I'm calling them incapable or weak. And then, you know, so immediately they're on the offense, you
yeah.
know?
Well, that's a pretty sweeping statement. I mean, I I listen to the things that you say, and I can see the rationale behind them. It's not like because I like you might say something that would trigger me, but or someone else might say something that would trigger me, but I would like to think that I can look at it from an objective perspective and say, like why would she say something like that? What's the point that she's trying to make? And um, I suppose what you're saying is like because that is a very controversial thing to say that anxiety is you believe it is not a mental illness because a lot of what happens around anxiety is about how to treat it. Um, what is your take on anxiety? That's what I'm curious about. How do you see it? And have you experienced anxiety a lot? Like, is that something that you?
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, of course. Um,
mm,
it's like, I mean, to be really honest, right? I don't know how to say that. There is no nice way to say it, but I feel like so there's this new thing where they say everybody has their own way of dealing with something. So everybody has their own capacity, right? Like a level of tolerance, and then it differentiates. But that has been the universal truth because we are not equal. Right. Some people are
right.
stronger, not just mentally, but also physically, right? Some people are a bit smarter, some people are a bit dumber, you know, a bit dull, a bit slow, and then you get a bit smart, a bit intelligent, right? So this has always been the case. So we understand that there are different levels of tolerance when it comes to pain or a mental strain. And then um, our during our parents' time, right? They would, I feel like they used to look at people who set good examples of being able to tolerate a certain amount of mental strain, or
Mhm.
pressure or stress. And they would say, okay, wow, how did you do that? Like, and then these people will come up and say, okay, this is what I did. This is what I did. This is how you could come up if you are stuck in this rut. And we'd listen, and then we'd try and apply that. And then maybe it would work for us, maybe it won't. But the problem is, like, now we can't come on any big platform and say, oh, if you're having anxiety, maybe you should, maybe go for a run, go for a jog, don't overthink it, take it easy. And you can't say things like this anymore because they're like, oh, it's a very serious mental illness, Meliza, don't you understand? Like, it has to be treated by a plethora of like prescriptions. But really,
Who do you think's saying that though?
really.
Like that is I get it. Like I hear what you're saying and I can see it happening too. Who do you think is saying that though? Because is it an influence that you think comes from like a greater power, like an influence, like from an institution that has a vested interest? Like, for example, okay, look, I'm thinking about the medical industry here, the pharmaceutical industry. So in the pharmaceutical industry,
Your
the whole
parents' industry, you mean?
yeah, in my
So
parents
you're one of them. You're
in
one
my
of them.
father's industry, in the industry that helped raise and feed me and shelter me. I want to make the point that the sole purpose of their business model is to sell more medication and treatment, right? And if you spend any amount of time thinking about that productively, you come to the conclusion that it's not in the best interest of the pharmaceutical industry to actually solve and cure anything. Because if it does, it means there's no more money to be made. It's just a simple equation. It's like, okay, we've got a business, we make money from treating these diseases. So, should we solve the diseases and cure them, or should we make them even more profitable? And obviously, you're going to say make them more profitable because it's a business. And people, I guess, realize that to a certain degree, but I think there probably could be more done to make it clearer to people so that they don't take as much medication as they do. And I'm just asking, like, because I wanted to bring that up as a topic because it's like, it's just one of the many ailments of our society where the well-being of the people is put in the back seat behind profit and power, money and power. Money and power are the two, I think, biggest challenges that we face as a existentially as a civilization. Money and power. If we can't figure out how to manage our money, our need for money and power, desire for money and power, if we can't figure out how to manage that, we're all fucked. Like, we are already all fucked. If we don't do anything, we're going to be fucked pretty soon. But we need to fix that as soon as possible because it's really starting to manifest. In my opinion, it's really starting to manifest as time goes on. I don't want to go on a ramble here, but as time goes on, you can see the divide between the rich and the poor getting even greater. So the consolidation of wealth is just increasing, and the poverty is increasing as a result. And that's not any mistake. That's just how this whole system works at the moment. So again, I mean, it's. Do you feel like that's because people genuinely believe that they are incapable of handling these kinds of everyday challenges, or do you think it's because there is something happening in the background there that comes from like a bigger, perhaps, push? Um,
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, if you openly say something like this, they're going to be like, oh, conspiracy theory. So it's just a conspiracy, some
yeah,
crap like this, right?
yeah,
So it's very difficult to say
it is
something and
difficult.
stand by it,
It's super
right?
difficult to
But
talk about it.
because how do you prove it, So I think that's something that they do, or I don't know who does it, But I know that social media is flooded with this, where they pull on people's heartstrings, you know? So it's like they know that collectively people will have good intentions, right? So if you see someone, let's take this anxiety crap, right? So if you see someone who's suffering from it, and they say, "Oh, be kind, be gentle, be this, be that," they need help, they need professional help. And if you're the oddball standing there saying, "Hey, take it on the chin, just like, brush it off, you're gonna be okay," that's insensitive. So they do this whole game where if you if you are actually giving them better advice than the rest, you are going to be seen as not being empathetic. You're going
Yeah.
to be seen as the bad guy,
Yeah.
So who is doing this, and I don't really know whether it is something that is being handled by like a
Well, we
bigger,
know,
like
I'll
an
tell you something.
Illuminati or
I just
something.
want to interject here for
But
just a second, because we
yeah.
know, right, based on actual fact, like this has happened and is the oldest trick in the book, in my opinion, anyway. So the industry has a lot of false information and misleading articles, and they are written by medical professionals. And those medical
Mm-hmm.
professionals have been found to be working in within the pharmaceutical industry. They've been paid
Yeah.
and are sponsored by these pharmaceutical companies to go and create content, and that content manages to find its way into the best publications at the top of the search results, and that is a massive industry in itself. It's like a shadow industry that like you can't really apply to have a job in the industry. You have to be a medical professional, and then you get approached one day. I would
Yeah.
imagine, right? I mean, I haven't been approached like that, but so it's the oldest trick in the book, though, right?
Oh, we're never gonna get approached for stuff like that,
We're
because
never going to get approached
we're
for
most
that.
probably gonna be like, "Nah, screw you." It's not never gonna happen.
It's never going to happen. We're going to be silenced. But yeah, I think these conspiracy theories, it's a very dangerous term to throw around. Like, if you're
Yeah.
going to say conspiracy theory, do you even know what it means? Like, do you really know what you're saying? Because conspiracy theories are a real thing. Like, they have come true and been proven many times. So it's not like a conspiracy theory is something that just comes out of the mouth of a crazy person. Conspiracy
Yeah.
theory is a group of people conspiring to do something, probably malicious. So I think we really need to analyze a lot of the programming that we've had, and be a lot more courageous in talking about stuff that maybe we can't prove right now, but we're not afraid to bring it up, because you know what? If
Yeah.
it is true, well, fuck, we need to do something about it.
Yeah. And I mean, this is so, like, I was watching this documentary talking about how, like, they realized that, like, eating food that were rich in fat was not as harmful to you as much as eating food that were rich in, like, sugar, right? That had a high sugar content. And on how they had to keep that discovery from reaching the newspapers at the time, because they didn't want people to stop consuming sugar. So they said, "Oh no, fat is bad. Eating fat is bad, but having sugar is okay." So now you see that in this body positivity movement, right? So if, like, Demi Lovato, she went to some, I don't know, she went to some restaurant and it said, like, sugar-free choices and stuff like this, and she threw a bitch fit, and she thought it was offensive, and it's getting there. So it's like, if I am online and I'm talking about, like, fitness and stuff like this, and I'm like, you really shouldn't be overweight, it's bad for you, oh, suddenly it becomes offensive,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
so,
And
yeah.
it's the same thing. It's like, so they use empathy. So they use, like, this whole kindness crap, right? So they'll be like, "Oh, you shouldn't ask this person, they must be suffering from something." Yeah, they're suffering from gluttony, from greed. They need to stop. Oh, you think I don't want to sit here and eat, like, 12 donuts? Really? I'd love to, but it's not good for you.
I
You
feel
think,
like
like,
that's one of the major reasons why the individualist movement of just doing whatever you want, whenever you want, no matter what the consequences, because you have rights as an individual, right? Like you should be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, I guess, as long as it's within the constraints of the law. But I feel like that's one of the reasons why this is pushing so hard, is because what it actually does is it gives people an excuse to divide and to not be part of the community and to not play by the same rules as everyone else and to be, I guess, weakened. Look, you just mentioned something that essentially what you're saying is if you get away with everything that you want to, you're going to be a pretty weak individual because you won't have the character, you won't have the inner strength and the discipline and the, you know, to be able to weather the hard times. This is an issue that we're facing right now, in my opinion. And I empathize with so many people who are listening to this, who are going through hard times and who maybe have had issues changing their habits or dealing with their anxiety or all of this stuff. And that's why we produce so much content around it, is because we're trying to help. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, when you really look into it, save for the few instances where this could be like chemical or genetic or something along those lines, something scientific, I feel like society, all right, and the cultures within it are moving in a more individualistic direction, and we're losing our community. And we talked about this the other day, right? We're losing our sense of community. And what happens when you lose your sense of community is you don't play by the same rules anymore. You go out and you do whatever you want. And it doesn't benefit everyone around you, which could be a selfless, it could be you could look at that and say, well, what about me? And I'm like, okay, look, fine. I get it. Like, you have your own life. You want to do your own things, and no one should take that away from you. But just bear in mind, just remember, we're in this together. We're all in this together. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own opinion. It might not always agree. They might not always agree with you, but that's good, because now we get to see each other eye to eye, and we get to play with ideas, and we get to find something that benefits everyone. So I'm just saying, I feel like that's why there's a big push for individualism at the moment, partly because it really divides people. It divides people so they can't unite. And when people can't unite, they're weak. They're just weak. There's no question about it.
Yeah. But I think that there is um the I agree, but I
Correct.
think like but I think like 60%, right? The 40% is it the problem starts where before, if we had a community and we had a person who doesn't really share the community values, right? They would alienate themselves and then, excommunicated or whatever, back in the day. So you're not with us, then you're not really part of us, right? Okay, fine. You can go do whatever you want. It's not going to bother us. It's not going to bother our children. And, we carry on, right? But the problem now is that people alienate themselves because they think that they have this amazing mentality and they've figured everything out, and we should just be able to do whatever the hell we want and not be held accountable for anything. And they demand that you agree with them. And this is what is problematic. So we have people who break away from tradition and culture, and it's all good and dandy. But when they come back and they say, no, you better find me right? You better find that I am perfect, and my 200-pound body is the new norm, is the new normal. All of this crap, whatever that they want to do, like just have like multiple sexual partners, be promiscuous, no, like, or girls getting on OnlyFans and things like that. Like, you still have to find what I do correct, and if you don't, then you are wrong, then you are unkind, you are cruel, right? So then everybody else who is in the community comes together and says, oh wait, you're they should be allowed to do whatever the hell they want to do, and you are wrong for ever pointing anything out.
Well, that's
So this is
exactly the
when the
point that I was.
problem starts. Yeah. So
That's what I was
it's like
making.
okay, fine then. Remove the
No, no,
40%.
no. I mean, I
But
just
you
want to say
can't.
that because I actually
Yeah.
I really think that that's correct. That's actually what's happened. Look, see how difficult it is to get along with people. You see how difficult it is to get along with people who always want to be right. Like, there's no way.
And it's like, look, like, I'm not saying that you have the right to do what you want, but please don't demand from me to buy into your
Right.
delusion, because I
That. Yeah.
won't. I can still be kind to you. I can still say, oh, you know what? Maybe you're a little bit of a freak of nature. It's okay. What the hell? I have so many friends who are creeps. Like, come on, I'm the biggest idiot, right? Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I never said that, but it's just like I still don't like demand from my friends that, oh, you have to think that what I say, the way I behave, is the correct way to behave. And that's what I can't stand about like transgender people, what I can't stand about like homosexual people, because this is gay people, because this is the problem. It's like, I don't have a problem if you're gay, it's fine with me, but don't ask me to align my morals with yours. Why can't I have my own morals and my own ethics and you have yours and I don't have a problem with it? Stop demanding for me to agree with you. I don't demand you to agree with me.
Mhm.
So this is
You,
the
you could say the
problem.
same thing about religion as well, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be just
Yeah,
transgenders or gay or anything like that. It's the concept of having a set of beliefs and forcing them on other people, and and I don't believe that that's right. I don't think that that's right. I think it's definitely fine to have a set of beliefs.
of
I've got nothing
course.
against it, but I do think that pushing it into like school curriculums and things like that is to a certain degree. I think it's okay, but I feel like if it's done as a form of political correctness, then that's definitely already starting to get into dangerous waters because you're acting in the interests of self-preservation. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You're doing something because you're frightened you're going to lose your job, or you're frightened you're going to lose your
Right.
clients, or you're frightened you're going to lose your students or your advertisers. Correct? This is the kind of world that we
It
live in
boils my blood.
where if there is a social movement, the first people to jump on it are the politicians and the corporations. The politicians and the corporations, they want the votes and they want the customers, right? And that's all that's important to them. So when you see Nike standing behind Black Lives Matter, there may be a large amount of people, a lot of people within the organization that really do stand behind Black Lives Matter and everything that it's supposed to represent. But as ultimately, I believe, because I would like to think I'm not naive. I believe that it is because when you get the support of those people, you will get their custom as well. So this is one of the issues that we face is we're seeing a lot of these movements and a lot of these um, a lot of this political correctness kind of intensify and become stronger when I don't even know if it was ever going to be that strong just organically anyway. It was just because it was
Yeah.
amplified by all of the wrong reasons.
Exact, and this is what I said even in one of my videos. I said, please, like, don't even for a second think that these brands are trying to be your friend, or they're trying to, they're trying to help you, or whatever, they're trying to make you feel good. No, they all have like an agenda. I think I was 17 or something when I found this bunch of pictures online. And so when we first discovered the internet, we would like download pictures, right?
I have a feeling
So,
your story is going to be distinctly different from mine when I was 17 and I found the internet. The
okay,
pictures,
fine.
the pictures I found online.
No. At 17, you were playing with sticks and stones, right? Learning how to make a fire and
I
stuff.
was playing with my sticks and stones, that's for sure.
Okay, stop. Oh, God, good Lord. Oh my God.
Okay, but you when you were 17, what happened?
So I um found this bunch of pictures, so I click download, and then the title was things I wish people told me when I was young, something like this, right? And I found this bunch of pictures, and one of the pictures was of how one said, you just may not conquer all your fears, you'll just end up learning to live with them. Right, so it's like you have like phobias and things like that. So as kids, we think like, when am I going to get rid of this? Like, I have to go to some therapy or do something. And then this picture basically said like, it had a little girl sitting in a dark room, sitting with like this monster, and she's like holding a plate of cookies, and she's like, do you want a cookie? So it's like, you're gonna learn to live with your fears, right? And
Nice.
another picture said, of this guy standing standing near, like, at the edge of a building, and the Nike was like on a helicopter or something with a big banner, and it said, just do it. Right, and he's looking down. Right, and the caption for it was, no brand is your friend.
Oh my
And
God.
it
Okay.
stuck with me for life.
Wow.
And
Yeah, I was
when
gonna
I
say.
see like these people, they're like, oh, Disney is going to have a black Little Mermaid. I said, for bloody what? Why does Little Mermaid have to be black? She's white girl. Right, so
I'm
imagine.
laughing
So,
because I see the ridiculousness in everything
and
that
they're like, oh,
you're
applaud
highlighting, right?
Disney and do this, and I'm like, do you think Disney gives a shit about the black community?
Yeah, that's what I'm laughing at. I'm laughing at the fact
Really?
that.
You you
But
you you think they give a fuck? That they don't give a shit about you, man. They just
why
do
do
this
you
for
think
money.
people? Why do you think some of us have such a hard time grasping this concept, though?
I
Because
have no bloody clue, right? And people would have all these theories. They'll be like, "Oh, it's okay. Business doing it for money, Melissa. It's still
I think I know why.
representation." But it's
I
like,
think I know
okay,
why.
but representation for what? She's a white mermaid with red hair, and then we have Princess and the Frog, which is a black princess, and then it's a black woman would play that role. Imagine if they go and put a white person or a brown woman in the black person's role.
It
We
happens
would
all the
have
time.
really
It happens
hell and
all the
high.
time. It's called whitewashing. Have you ever heard of that? It's like Hollywood have had a history, and this is I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's interesting. Hollywood have a history of whitewashing characters. So let's say there's a popular book about this Egyptian queen,
Okay,
right?
I
And
know where you're going, and
yes,
they would cast this
they would cast
a
like
white
Kate
actress.
Blanchett, right, as
Yeah,
the Egyptian.
but do you really think, in order to put this right, we should force the complete opposite?
Well,
So
no,
we take
I
white
don't, and I don't
characters
think.
and put black people in it. Really? You
No, I
think that's going to
don't.
solve the problem?
This is always an issue that because I'm half British. There's no way to get out of that. I'm half white. I'm half Chinese. Um, at least I'm not fully
He's
British, which
half
is good.
Chinese.
Oh, I'm half
He's half
Chinese.
Chinese.
Is she Chinese?
Yeah, she's half. No, she's Thai, Cambodian, and Chinese.
Oh, nice, good mix. Um, but this is always one of the issues when white people talk about this. It is quite difficult because the argument is, well, how would you know what it's like to have lived with dark skin all this time? And I don't. I don't know what it's like. But I do believe that we can't fix the problem by flipping the coin upside down and doing the opposite because it just
Thank
never
you.
works. It never works.
It never
Um,
worked, and it never will. Eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
you've got a lot of people who are in the public eye who have that opinion too, and they are the people of the minorities. Like Chris Rock has a very strong opinion about victimization of black people in the United States and how it's a real problem and it's stopping the progression of black people in general in the United States from actually going out there and accepting these opportunities and getting out of the situations that they're in, socioeconomically, because they have fallen into the trap of believing that they are victimized, whether that's a narrative that's pushed on them or not. And I think it might be. But he is one of the examples of the people that are maybe operating from a different perspective. They've broken out of that paradigm, and now they're enjoying life and they're able to say how it is from the other side. And I appreciate that. I see that for what it is. It's a real thing. It's not like this is a made up, oh, there's a guy somewhere who's black and he's talking about how maybe, maybe there's a victimization mentality happening. It's a real person. You can see them talking. And I feel like as a white person, yeah, it's really difficult to talk about these particular subjects. But to get to the point, I agree with you. Never a good idea. And the adage is an eye for an eye is like not the way to go about it. All right, that's a really bad way to
Yeah.
say it, but yeah,
And
it's
it's
not the
like,
right way.
so if Disney says, oh, but we don't have enough black princesses, we don't have enough brown this, we don't have enough, Chinese this or something. Okay, so then just make more movies about them.
Well, look,
How's
you
that
talked about this
for
recently
a
with the
suggestion?
Olympics. You talked about this with the Olympics recently, and I was laughing at your posts, and I'm half Chinese, so let's talk about this. We can't always be looking for uh, an excuse to make actual individual and team success about race. So when
Yeah.
someone comments, "Oh, it's another Asian woman who's like gotten a gold medal. Congratulations to the Asian women in the Asian community." It's like, yeah,
I got blocked by that page, by the way. It's got like 1 million
did
followers,
you?
but they went to the extent of just blocking me.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
So what were you saying, so that people can understand what we're talking about? What were you commenting
So
on?
there was this the Japanese skateboard who is like, I don't know, she's very young, she's like 13 or something, and she's the youngest person to win a medal in the Olympics. And so this page posted a number of screenshots of tweets that people were sharing, and 90% of the tweets were like, maybe like from Americans, Europeans, and then Asians, who said, oh my god, check this Asian girl magic, watch Asia rise. What the, why?
Hmm.
Like, I'm Asian, I'm not happy that some okay, I'm not happy about some Japanese person winning. What the hell, you think I give a shit? Why do you have to make it about race? Because I don't care, and you're excluding me from this topic because you shouldn't have not brought up race in the first place. Olympics is not about race, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
about countries,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the main argument was, oh, we've been oppressed and suppressed and all this crap. Asian people have been suppressed for so long. Okay, the white, so because my argument was like, if a white person like you, for example, says like, okay, so they were saying, okay, so if France won a medal, they'll say, yeah, go French people. No, that is not what you're saying in reverse, right? If that's exactly what you were meaning, then you would say go Japanese girl, right? You wouldn't say go Asian girl. So if France won, then like the Caucasians and the Europeans should say go white man. Right? And all
Mm-hmm.
of you would have your panties in a twist about it, right? Because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work in reverse. Why? Because a white man is a suppressor. He's the oppressor. Okay, he's the racist, right? So no country in Asia colonized any other country. So you're saying, I'm just talking about Sri Lanka alone, right? We had a 30-year civil war, the Sinhalese against the Tamils, and you're saying there is no racism involved. They were fighting each other purely based on race. So
Mm-hmm.
how can you say that Asians are not racist towards their own Asians, towards
Mm-hmm.
their own kind? So it's such bullshit that they paint the white people as the enemy, and we are always the victim. No, I live
That's
in
what I'm saying. That's what I
Singapore,
was saying
and there
earlier.
are
I think,
so many white people around me.
yeah.
What the hell? No, I do better than white people. And they
I
look
heard.
at me and think, what the hell?
I don't know
I
if this
don't feel
is true.
suppressed at all.
Right, but you don't feel suppressed at all. You are Sri Lankan, right? So you are not white, and you are actually making the argument that there is a victimization happening, correct?
Yes.
Right. And it keeps things going. It keeps this whole war going between the races. It keeps division. It keeps people from uniting. Now, I remember a study that was done. Well, it wasn't a study, more than it was a report. And the report said that God, I wish I can find that. I hope I can find this after the show so I can cite it. But apparently there were many artificial accounts, robots, let's say, right, on social
Mm,
media, just fake accounts.
mm,
Apparently, there were hundreds of thousands of fake accounts, and there still are on Facebook. I mean, it's a big problem. They're having trouble finding a way to deal with that because
mm,
it's such a difficult problem to address. And
mm,
these
mm,
fake
mm,
accounts are basically they join groups and they post the same information or similar information that's designed to flood the platform with a
mm,
certain narrative.
mm,
So if it was the Black Lives Matter movement, right?
mm,
Let's just say if you were a malicious individual or a group and you
mm,
wanted to spark or incite rage with this group and maybe even push them towards a political ideology, you could use these hundreds of thousands of robots and you could post in the groups that these people are a part of, and you could start to sway and push their ideology slightly, or at least their interests. And that is how it works these days. I don't think if you haven't seen The Social Dilemma, watch it. You'll start to see what it means for to actually use these
I've
things.
watched it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in general, if anyone's listening to this and they don't know what I'm talking about, that's a really good place to start because it gives you a blueprint for what social media is actually doing to our brains and how it can be manipulated by malicious intent. And
Yeah.
so when the social movements like that happen, and I'm sure it probably happened with the LGBTQ and all of that stuff and the QAnon and everything, look, whatever these uh, groups that are trying to divide us want, right? They will jump on anything to keep us divided. They will
Yeah.
spark and they will infuse
Exactly.
anything, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And this is the same thing with like they're saying, okay, so there is a rise in Asian hate crime, right? And we saw like so many examples of it. But it's like we can all collectively agree that it's wrong to do that. It is wrong to be a racist, right? But
Of course,
the,
and no one's arguing that point. I think just
yeah,
to
no, no, no,
clarify, just to bring it back to center a little bit before you
like
go
no, no,
on, we aren't saying that racism is okay. We're not saying that at all. What we're saying is there's something happening that people need to be aware of that's stopping
yeah.
racism from actually being resolved in the first place.
So what happens is like as you were saying about like these fake accounts and whatnot pushing a certain narrative. What happens is so we see a rise in Asian hate crime. My as usual my argument, okay, is so if an Asian person is hurt based on their race, right? Are you saying that it is wrong that they are hurt, or is it wrong that they're hurt because they're Asian, right? And it's a very tiny little difference, and I don't think a lot of people would understand it. I'm sorry to say, right? But the minute you say it's Asian hate crime, and then you bolster up that idea, and they share it everywhere, and they say Asian hate crime, don't be a racist, don't be a racist. And we are here sitting thinking, oh my God, like I would never hurt an Asian person, but they keep telling me not to be a racist. Am I racist? No, I don't think any person should be hurt because of their race, right?
Mhm.
But they take like this one example and they'll put it all together and they'll say, oh, you shouldn't hurt someone based on their race, and then that becomes like the topic. So then
Mhm.
everybody's fighting on race.
Mm-hmm.
But we as a human species have all come together to condemn violence and like grievous bodily harm or harassment and all this stuff. We all think it's bad, but we think it's bad if you do it to anyone, irrelevant of color,
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant of their religious background, irrelevant of their social standing. We don't care what color you are. If you are harassed, it's wrong to do. But when you say, oh, it's only Asian people who are going through it,
Yeah. Yeah. If we are able to somehow just say, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the fact that we're different skin colors. This is not a problem to me. Like it didn't even cross my mind. Somehow we need to get back to the point where it's not even an issue anymore. Because the more we promote the differences between us, like with these Asian Olympics or the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like it's just reinforcing the whole thing over and over and over again.
yeah. And if you say one thing against it, it's like, then you're the racist. Okay,
exactly.
got it. But you are not racist for screaming about Asian Olympics, and you're not racist for trying to assert the number of times that Asian people have won, right? That's not racist, right? No, I am the racist for pointing it out. Sure, thank you very much. And
You've been on
honestly,
Clubhouse, right?
sorry,
You've tried Clubhouse, right? You've been on
what?
Clubhouse, the app.
No.
Oh, right. So there's an app called Clubhouse, and it's basically a place where you've got these rooms. There, it's all audio only, so there's no video. And you join a room on a certain topic, and you can listen to people talk on the stage. There's a stage, and there's all these like avatars of people, and you can be invited to talk, or you can put your hand up and you can go and talk. And so Clubhouse was really amazing at the beginning. There was so many different subjects and topics that people were creating rooms for. And then over time, it became just kind of like a watered down version of what it used to be. And there's a lot of communities on there that talk about racism. Like I got invited to be part of an Asian community to talk about how there's a lot of Asian hate crime and things. And I tried it. I tried to join in a couple of times, but it was so difficult for me to accept a lot of the things that they were saying in there, because it was almost like they were trying to, even if it wasn't a conscious thing, they were just prolonging this problem, or if not even making it worse by creating an even greater divide. Because when you and I
Yeah.
don't want to hammer
when you
on.
when you don't isolate an incident, and then when you don't isolate like one incident from another, and they just make it like it's all the people in the world who are racist against Asian people. Like, what are you saying? It's not
Yeah,
true. And that's why it's so hard to talk about it.
exactly. But I think we tried our best, and hopefully it's like something that when I publish this, it's not going to destroy my entire online presence. Can you imagine if I publish this? I'm like, hey, everybody, new episode out, and then I'm just like canceled the next day.
Oh, I've got cancelled. I don't think I've got cancelled per se, because there are still like a lot of people who do like um, support me to a certain extent,
Hmm.
but I feel so hated. I really do. I feel it, and
Yeah, you
I
know
mean it's
what?
okay, but like whatever, like I can deal with it. It's nothing new for me to be hated by people, to feel that hate, you
Hmm.
know.
But do you feel like you thrive with that? Because I feel like you might feel like you thrive with that. Like I get that kind of vibe from you, like a kind of like a fuck you vibe, kind of like I don't care what you think.
No, no, really, really, no. Because I feel like, well, when I first like started gaining a lot of followers on IG and I went viral, I had so much of support from people, and I was like, wow, for once everyone likes me, you know, like for once. And I loved it. And I didn't want to say anything, even though I saw this type of um a lot of Western ideas, social justice movements and gender politics, tapping into the Sri Lankan mindset. I I supported it for a bit, yeah, because I just wanted to be included. I'm like, oh, please don't forget me. I support this. And then I thought, really, well, what am I doing? You know,
Hmm. How old are you? Just sorry, I don't mean to ask it so bluntly, but
27,
27, right?
27. Yeah.
So you're really young, and what do you
Am
think it
I?
is? Yeah, I'm
I was
38.
I was having I was having a heart attack on the day of my birthday, or the days leading up to my birthday, because I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna be one of those old maids who never gets married.
No, I don't think so. I can't see that happening. Like, no way, no way. But we always think that. We always think, oh my god, I'm getting older, and like, what have I done with my life? That's always, it's a good thing too. It's
Oh,
like a good thing to look back retrospectively. But my question was like, so you're much more conservative than I would say the average 27-year-old female today. And so what do
mhm.
you think has been the major reason why you've been able to have that perspective, whereas maybe a lot of the people around you don't?
To be really honest, I really did not have this mindset before. I had like I when I first started building my IG, I would post like very provocative content. So I'd be like in a bikini and I'd be posting like this and doing this and doing this, whatever that would get me more followers
The one
and
that got me to follow
more.
you, yeah. Mhm,
Yeah. You fell in the trap
yeah,
there.
I know. I put my hand up. Sorry.
But I would do this, right, because I knew that this is what would make people like me. And I thought to myself, why can't I do what I want to do? But I should be able to live my life. And this Sri Lankan culture is suppressing women. It is, right? But I met this one gentleman. um he was a lawyer in Sri Lanka, and he told me one time, Melissa, let's go out for coffee sometime. And I said, okay. And he took me out for coffee, and I was, I think, 19 or something, and obviously I had everything figured out by 19. Okay. I was at the ripe age of 19. And then he told me, and he said, I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to break a certain stigma, and you're trying to, like, power through this, but um you're not necessarily doing it the right way, you know so just because you post like in your bikini or something, do you think that you're going to make it easier for the women living in Sri Lanka? Do you really think that this is the way to go?
What were
That
you trying to do? Like, what was he
I
referring
was I was
to?
just trying to get attention, at the time. And but people were seeing me as these young girls were seeing me as this pillar of freedom, uh, you
Oh, I
know
see. Right. So you were like a role model to people.
Yeah, like a role model, like a fitness chick who was posting in like a sports bra and tiny little shorts, right? And like posing with like my back open and like, no bra or anything. And this was like, nobody has seen that in Sri Lanka,
And in Sri Lanka, that doesn't happen. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was also I was also at a private university. I was enrolled in a private university studying for my law degree at the time. So it was very controversial. So people were like, oh, okay, so she can have an education. She could be like educated, but she could also behave like this. So this is like the new age, modernized woman. And somebody wrote an article about me in a very popular Sinhalese newspaper, and it went viral. So that's how I gained a lot of fame in Sri Lanka. But the older I get, right, the more I think about, like, okay, I challenged tradition and culture in Sri Lanka for my own gain. So I could say, no, 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 I was trying to pave a path for freedom. No, 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 no. I wanted more attention, and I wanted more power. I wanted more people to follow me and listen to me on my Instagram, right? And I don't shy away from it, because that's exactly what I do right now, right? So it's not that I stopped posting pictures in bikinis. It's not that I stopped posting like
I was going to say, like, you're one of the most
like
attention-seeking people I know. It's like,
it's like but I know that I'm doing this because it is just my personality and it's who I am. So you could say whatever you want, right? But it's more like just being open about it. So it's like I am very open to people criticizing me. I'm okay with people criticizing me
You
because
criticize
I
yourself
am.
as well.
Yes, but I'm also trying. I'm disrespecting the existing culture and the social dynamics in Sri Lanka. So obviously there's going to be a backlash, and it's okay. I don't demand from people that they agree with me everywhere I go.
Hmm.
And this is why it's problematic when I see people who do certain things and they're just like, oh, but you should not say one thing against me. Huh? What the hell? You know? Because when all of this, like when in Sri Lanka, when like my when I went viral, I didn't even once fight back. I didn't say anything towards the people who were slandering me and defaming me, because I knew in my mind, I knew what I did. I knew exactly what I did. So I don't demand from these people who've been living their entire lives in Sri Lanka, not knowing so much about the feats that women were making outside of the island. And I was not demanding for them to agree with me. And that's just something that I don't like. I don't like what I see on Instagram, because it annoys me, because it's like,
Yeah.
why you demanding I agree with you, you know?
Yeah. It's like if you.
I don't have to. And that is how I got more and more inclined towards the conservative movement, because I was listening to these ideologies where they were just like, "Well, we don't hate anyone, but we're just trying to be logical about this,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
like if you are overweight, right, and you post a picture on IG and you say like, I'm just doing this for me. If you're doing it just for you, then you can take a picture and look at it yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're posting this, and you're out there, and you're going to you're asking for acceptance. Just be honest about it. Like, I do it all the time. Of course I post like this. I want to look attractive. I'm trying to attract a suitable mate for myself. Oh, I have no problem with saying that,
Hmm.
because that's
Yeah.
honestly what I'm doing. And I don't think it's shameful to do it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you know, there's so many things that I want to talk about with regards to the points you made, but I'll start with the one about the having being comfortable with knowing that there are people who are always going to disagree with you, and you're in a situation where you probably get a lot more disagreement than the regular average person, just because of your audience, and where they come from and their values and their culture and their history. So that's probably a really good practice to get competent at handling that criticism, right? So you've probably got a lot of good practice there. um, but if you want to make an omelet, you've got to break some eggs. Is one of the sayings. You've got to be willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable, which is what this entire conversation really is. It's something I decided to do because I felt like there was a need to have these kinds of discussions about topics that are basically taboo, or they're very sensitive, and it's difficult to. I mean, not all of the conversations that I have in this series are going to be about social movements or racism or whatever, but I feel like it's also a practice for me. This is my way of practicing putting my thoughts on paper, so to speak, and then having other people peer review it and say, I don't agree with you, or I agree with you, or right. I'm expecting a lot of disagreement, but I'm okay with that. And I think everyone should be okay with disagreement. That is a healthy society. A healthy society. I was listening to um, Russell Brand talk to Brian Cox, who's if you don't know him, he's a really fascinating, smart scientist from the United Kingdom, physicist, and but he's got a really good head on him. So they were talking about just discourse in general, and how he made the point that the time that we need to be worried about our society is when there's no disagreement, because that means that we're not actively pursuing what we actually truly want. We're not acting in we're not in individuals anymore. We're not we don't express ourselves. We don't feel like we have a freedom to do so. Like, look at North Korea. That's a good example. North Korea, you do not disagree in North Korea, because if you do, you're going to get your head chopped off and your family's going to get killed. So think about it like that. Like, if we don't have disagreement, we're fucked. The best thing we can do is to have disagreement, but in a non-violent way, in a way that we can actually work things out and talk about them and be open-minded enough to, like, maybe see it from a different perspective. So that was
Yeah.
a really, really cool point that he made, and it made me realize, like, yeah, I definitely need to keep doing these shows, these episodes. So that was the first point that I wanted to make. There was another point there that it's actually, I've lost my fucking train of thought now. So, but there was a lot of stuff that you said that I
I'm the
just
one that's
genuinely agree with.
drinking.
You're the
Okay.
one that's drinking. But there's a lot of stuff that you're saying, and I am I am very uh, I'm very fortunate in the sense that I get to have these views and I get to communicate them. I don't want to ever take that for granted or pretend that I'm not privileged. But yeah, because, like, if you, like, think about it like this, like, if you come from like, I'm not in a community that is uh, like ostracized or looked down on. I don't have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. So the fact that I can actually sit here and talk about these things and not feel too threatened by it is a real privilege. So I like to give a platform to people where they can actually communicate that too and share it, and in the hope that people who are listening are going to maybe even just a little bit see a shift in their paradigm, maybe even a little bit just start to question some of the motives that have fueled the way they think and their decisions. And that's really all it is, just to kind of riff on the meaning behind this whole series of conversations. It's like a platform where maybe if you're a little bit open-minded, you can perhaps learn a different way of seeing something, and it would change your life and the lives of the people around you.
Yeah. But just don't. Oh, cool. Hmm. Something's like boring. Yeah, it's like, no, but
So,
yeah. Hmm.
yeah,
I just don't think that, irrelevant to the background that you come from, I just don't think that anybody's opinion, like, it's like, oh, you haven't gone through it, so you don't really know. I hate that argument. Really, I
yeah.
do. It's just so wrong on so
You
many
mean like
levels. Like, I
invalidating
don't.
someone because they don't have the same
Yeah.
direct experience as
Yes, it's
you?
like, oh, you can't really talk about it. And yes, I am privileged, so I don't really know. I can't really talk about this. Mm, no, I really don't agree, because I feel like, when I was in Sri Lanka, where I lived most of my life up until I was around 11, 10, uh, quite very comfortable life. Like, my father was doing very well, and then my father lost his job, and he never really went back to work, and so I was moving around in a certain social circle where all the kids' parents were rich, right? They had money, and then all of a sudden, like, I felt like I couldn't keep up, because, like, my father would be like, oh, you can't take a taxi there today, you're just gonna have to take the bus. So I can't dress a certain way, and I can't go to the movies and buy a movie ticket, because I can't ask my father for that money. So I saw that decline, and I had to then start moving around with people who were more on my page. But I never lost the relationships that I had with the people before. So I feel like, I saw both sides of the coin, of the story, and I just don't. I hate when people tell me things like, oh, but you're so privileged and you're this and you're that. Like, what? Do you think that anything that I've got was handed to me? Like they hated because if I say that in Sri Lanka, they hated me because I said that no, like my parents couldn't pay for my private education and I had to find money for it myself. And I found it because I spoke English very well and I was able to get hired by a company that needed very fluent English speakers. And that's what afforded me this opportunity. And they hated to hear me say that because I was apparently disregarding everybody else. But like, oh, because you're privileged, because you're this or you're that. And it's like, no, but I've been there. I have been through some sticky situations. Just because I don't come here and I don't openly say what my experiences have been doesn't mean that I don't have a voice here. And one of the reasons as to why I don't like saying that is because if I do start narrating all of my experiences that would relate to the topic that we are discussing, then my argument collapses on itself. Then I will start excluding everybody who has not experienced anything about this topic to shut their
Yeah.
mouth.
Where do you
So I
draw the
don't talk
line, kind
about
of
it.
thing?
Yeah, but I have
Hmm.
learned from very similar experiences, and that's why I have very strong opinions about these things.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that does make sense, and
Yeah.
that's why I
So
said,
like,
where do you draw the line? Because you could go on
yeah.
forever. You could say that any point you're trying to make, you can't understand because you haven't had the same experiences as me. So that's a fair
Yeah, so
point.
I don't care if it's like a rich kid who's sitting and doing like whatever he wants and he has something to say. Let him say it, damn it. Don't disregard him just because he hasn't been it's not his fault he wasn't poor, or it's not his fault that he didn't have what you had, or I mean he had what you didn't have for that matter.
Do you not feel
You
like
can do
today
that.
there's maybe like do you not feel like today common sense used to be something that we referred to as there was no easy way to define it, right? It could take form in many different ways, but common sense was generally agreed to be something very desirable and helpful. And so, in a situation where there was no rule existing that would help you navigate that, you could use common sense and it would just get you through and it would be fine. But do you not
Hmm.
feel like I feel like today, at least in a social climate, common sense is not something that we ever talk about anymore because you have to define it. You have to be incredibly concise and clear and um, before you talk about anything or before you address anyone. And so what happens is, I think and I don't know what the solution to this is, and I'm not even sure exactly what the point I'm trying to make is, but I feel like we have slowed down the ability to just get things done because we're all being caught, we're catching our tails trying to figure out how to say things or do things so that it doesn't upset someone else or hurt someone else or, right? There's no more common sense anymore. There's no more like, oh, well, I did it because it was the right thing to do. It's more like, I did it because of this, and this, and I was very aware of this, and I had to make sure of this, so that's why I did that. And it's like, wow, okay,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't think we have ever had to be so clear in the history of mankind.
Yeah. So all your actions have to be justified, and
Justified,
whatever
yeah.
justifications that you do present have to be in line with whatever the popular belief is
A
on social
narrative,
media.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
the
yes.
narrative. So you
That's the
can't
point I was trying to
say,
make.
oh, and I said this on my IG when I made the video about transgender people, like this man who was trying to breastfeed a baby. And I said, like, you could have all the education in the world, but you can't throw a book at me and tell me to forget my common sense. It's not going to happen.
Hmm. Okay,
We're
that's
just like, oh, it's just
exactly
like
a great example of what I'm trying to
a
say.
freaking they were calling me Neanderthal and shit like this, and like you're disruptive. This is almost criminal. Woo. Okay.
And what I was trying to say earlier when I was like, why do you think people haven't figured out yet, that corporations aren't, in their best interests? And I think the answer is when you are deficient in praise, when you feel like you need validation, and anyone is willing to give you that validation and that praise, you'll take it. It doesn't matter who they look like, where they're from, what their ideologies are. You're going to take it because it makes you feel good. So I guess what I'm seeing is maybe there's just a huge deficit of people feeling like they're accepted, of people feeling like they're part of something. Oh my God, this is starting to make so much sense to me now. Maybe the push for individualism is actually causing people to feel like they're less part of something. And as a result of that, it's manifesting in these ways of just holding on for dear life to these crazy ideologies and these crazy ways of building their identity, that they're going to fight tooth and nail over stuff like a man sticking his nipple into the mouth of a baby, and they're going to say, how dare you like dismantle this entire way that I've built for myself now to feel
Yeah.
validation and feel like I'm part of a group. Finally I'm part of a community. Don't you
Yeah.
fucking dare do that. When in actual fact,
Yeah.
like maybe the real reason that they feel like they're not part of a community is because we've been dismantling
It's
communities.
probably some other reason. I don't know. Maybe they didn't have enough friends to have lunch with the schoolyard. I don't know. But yeah, I understand. I'm pretty sure there's some larger issue.
Yeah. Wow. Could be. But
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, and you can't say like, oh my God, like, and I feel like that there's just so many people like who I know personally who've taken massive issue with me because of this video that I posted, and I refuse to take it down. And they're like, oh,
About the
if you're my
man
friend,
breastfeeding.
yeah. And I feel like, okay, maybe this is a little bit controversial to say, but like as a woman, when I see a baby in any sort of that I feel is not an ideal environment for a baby, it just ignites something else in me.
It triggers you. Yeah.
Yes, it triggers me on like a whole nother level. So like I get so angry and very passionate about it, and I think I will never stop talking about this problem after I saw this video. All this time, I let it be. I don't care about their fancy dress parades or whatever that they do in Colombo. I didn't care about it so much. I said, I'm not going to stick my fingers into it until a child gets involved. I feel like that angers me to an extent that, okay, now I'm not gonna let this go anymore. Because now they're trying to indoctrinate like kids into this, and now babies was innocent who never asked for this.
Yeah, they don't
Never
even have
asked
the
to be.
concept in their minds. They're just looking for a source of nutrition.
Yes, and you know, being born into this delusion. And I want people to someone just step up and do something, because now it's becoming a problem.
Well, that's you,
You
isn't it?
know,
I mean, that's why you do it. That's why I do this. We're taking control. We're trying to take control of what we can control. And if just talking about it is the best we can do, it's having an impact. Like your video made me want to talk to you about it, and now I'm talking to you about it, and someone else going to watch this. So it's the
watch
best.
this. Should I?
I'm gonna have to
should I be
edit the
wearing
fuck out of
something
this,
like?
by the way.
I should have been wearing like a tiny top or something, no bra or something.
Yeah,
It
I'm
would have
shirtless,
worked for
and then
you
you're
better.
wearing like a bikini. That would have been a better way to do this. At least you know what we could do? We could
have
do it
to
like for
appeal
the
to the
thumbnail.
masses,
Do you want
you
to do
know?
it for the? We can do it for the thumbnail, for the cover. We'll
Yeah,
just
like
take
me
off our
flashing or something like that.
yeah. Click. You don't even have to right click when you do that. That's
Yeah.
automatic click, right? I was saying I'm gonna have to edit the fuck out of this episode because there's so much stuff in here that I'm like, But
I don't think she can say that.
I like these conversations because they're so organic and we just talk about anything, like we can talk about the whole Asian Olympics thing, and then we can talk about um, Sri Lanka next, and we can talk about the LGBTQ community. It's cool. It's really nice. It's a organic conversation. Can't do that with other guests because they want to talk about their books or whatever. So this is a really nice platform. But I
I have
appreciate
no
you
book.
coming and talking to me today. I know we've been here for like an hour and a half now, so I
Yeah,
don't
but
want
it's
to.
always very nice to speak with you.
Well, we don't do it enough, so we should probably do it more
Oh, what are
often.
you saying?
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe today and you won't miss the next episode. We cover topics like recovering from infidelity, online dating, managing chronic anxiety, and so much more. We're on all the popular platforms, so take your pick, and we'll see you soon.